The Missouri Tigers eat the lunch of the Raging Cajuns 52-10. I got to say, I'm starting to get some 69 vibes. Nice. I'll explain right now on Locked On Mizzou.
You are Locked On Mizzou, your daily podcast on the Missouri Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, all you true sons and daughters, I'm John Miller, your Mizzou mafioso, and the central scrutinizer of Mizzou Tigers football and basketball. And we're live here post-game at halftime, by the way, of Georgia and Tennessee. I'll cut this off when that game starts once again, but we got to talk about a huge 52-10 victory by Missouri over Louisiana. And again, I'm starting to get some 1969 kind of vibes from these Missouri Tigers. And you know what? Before I start the show, I do need to remind you that this episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights. In this week's Moving the Game Forward, Mazda Move and be moved. And speaking of moving, well, the Missouri offensive line was definitely moving the pile forward for Ahmad Hardy and the rest of those Missouri running backs, Jamal Hardy, and yes, Marquise Davis, who had approximately 800 carries in the fourth quarter, did the true freshman, although somehow we couldn't get Matt Zollers a pass, a continuing frustration among Missouri fans. But indeed, you gotta squint and pick nits pretty hard to be upset by anything that happened in this game. Ahmad Hardy, the first Tiger to go for 100 yards rushing in the first 3 games of the season since Joe Moore in, say it with me, 1969. I think we'd all take another 1969 here in 2025. By the way, my father, who was right in the middle of his Missouri experience in that 1969 season, not only attended the Orange Bowl that season, but reminded me that Missouri beat the crap out of Michigan in the Big House that season, 40-17. He was there as well and correctly remembered that final score, I would point out, all these years later. And yet somehow he cannot remember the star of any television show that he currently watches. Somebody explain to me how human memory exactly works. But regardless, Missouri, again, speaking of 1969, how about 427 yards rushing? I mean, that really is out of a different era of football in a lot of different ways. More than 600 total yards rushing for Missouri. But, you know, I think I obviously was being a little tongue-in-cheek there with Eli Drinkwitz and not letting Matt Zollers throw a pass there in the fourth quarter of the second half of this ball game. Well, I will say, just running the outside zone over and over and over again in this ball game, there is some value to that because that is Missouri's absolute bread and butter play. It's really the foundation of this offense in so many ways. And if Missouri can get that particular play going, well, guess what? That opens up so much else for a mobile, accurate quarterback like Bo Pribula, who is really comfortable in the play-action pass game. Man, there's a lot to like about this Missouri offense right now. And I'll tell you, coming into the season, not only was it Bo Pribula, not only was it, you know, a lot of different, not only was it Bo Pribula, but just the Missouri offense in general. How good was this offense actually going to be? That was the real question of 2025, because I think most of us, including myself, felt pretty good about the Missouri offense and about the Missouri defense. But hey, the offense, you know, the bar from 2024, I don't think was as high as maybe people were making it out to be, especially outside of this program, because normally you'd love to have an experienced quarterback back, returning. Of course, that makes all the sense in the world. But Missouri's offense, again, was just kind of hit and miss last season. Well, right now it's looking better. And now that the quarterback position is looking like a real position of strength, I don't know how you can't be more bullish on what Missouri is doing right now. And by the way, what do great teams do? Well, they beat the absolute dog doo-doo out of teams that they're supposed to beat. It's not just, even though Missouri's obviously been great in one-score games over the last couple seasons or so, really the measure of great teams often is your ability to completely throttle your inferior competition. You never let them in the ball game. I mean, Louisiana was a team that I thought before the season maybe, 15, 17-point spread. Obviously, they lose their quarterback, Walker Howard, in week 1. That was a pretty devastating blow for the Raging Cajuns, I thought. And yet, even with that, a 27-point spread here over at FanDuel, I got to say, I've had some pretty good takes so far in the football season. One of my worst ones so far was talking anyone out of giving the 27.5 points today. Missouri completely dominated, and really, you didn't have to sweat that one at all. In fact, Missouri gave up an 84-yard touchdown run that kind of came out of nowhere. Other than that, basically the first-string defense in the first half gave up absolutely nothing outside of that. I thought Bo Prabula played another really good game, but I will say, that interception, I thought that was on him. I'll have to go back and watch it again, but just watching it live felt like that ball was thrown a little bit too far inside, maybe even a little bit of an aggressive decision in that spot. But hey, sometimes in practice, I'm always throw some interceptions in practice, get them out of your system. Well, at that point in the game, maybe that was a practice moment. Hopefully, regardless, just a learning moment for Bo Prabula and this Missouri offense. But, I just have to say overall, considering how ridiculously hot it was for a mid-September college football game in Columbia, Missouri, and just how simply overmatched Louisiana was as an opponent, I'm really proud of how this team continued to compete throughout. And I know Eli Drinkwitz, of course, perfect coach speak. He isn't going to be as proud as I am, at least not with his words. He's going to nitpick. I'm telling you, from a coach's perspective, when your coach is getting on you all the time in a 52-10 victory, that's a good thing. That means you're playing good football. Don't let the players know that. I want them to be thinking iron sharpens iron and we got to get better, darn it, at all times. But this was a really, really good performance by Missouri. Honestly, nothing to complain about whatsoever other than, again, a couple mistakes. One big one on defense, you give up that big run. One by Bo Prabula, he throws an interception. Fortunately, it could have been a big one by Ahmad Hardy, by the way. I'm not sure. Has anybody else ever seen an instant replay review that resulted in a 14-point swing? That was a rather unique moment. Definitely the correct call there, by the way. Hardy's body was off the ground. He had control of the ball, crossed the plane. That was a touchdown, without a doubt. But Ahmad, again, hold on to that football, buddy. Let's just make sure. I know he's a excitable boy, as Warren Zevon once said. He likes to get into the end zone. I love that. And by the way, as one of my listeners pointed out, the whole football announcers, the national media like to point out Ahmad Hardy. He likes to ride horses. That's becoming last season's Ryan Williams for Alabama. He's 17 years old every single game. Do we have to point that out? Really? Every single game? I don't know that we need to go that far. But speaking of going far, I have to say, after that missed 40-some-odd yard field goal by Missouri in this game, I think we need to take our strategy a little bit farther when it comes to fourth downs. I'll put it to you that way. But you know what? Coming up, we'll talk about that. But first, let's talk about Mazda. And yes, this episode is brought to you by Mazda's Moving the Game Forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining that. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep moving the game forward. And I got to say, Ahmad Hardy, my goodness, what a game for him for Missouri. The kind of performance I've been expecting out of him. 22 carries, 250 yards, 3 touchdowns. yeah, that's going to get the national media's attention, won't it? And speaking of getting attention, well, when you drive a Mazda, when you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. All right, we're back here live on Locked On Mizzou. Let's actually look at some of your comments here. Thanks to all of you everydayers who I see in my live streams all the time, by the way. You guys are the absolute best. I'll just say that. ZOU Flame says, didn't want to spoil any major pass plays for South Carolina. I completely agree there. I think Missouri showed what it has shown already in the passing game, but clearly, we've got some stuff in the bag for South Carolina that we haven't shown yet. Ahmad Hardy was in beast mode. I'd love to see his yards after contact stats. Indeed, yep, this is going to be real interesting to see after this ball game. Do you know if you can't make a game and friends don't need a ticket and you don't want a resale, you can donate tickets to Missouri, to veterans, etc., MIZ. Hey, P5 Cowdery, good point there. Something to keep in mind for those of us who may have extra tickets and, well, some people who bailed out on that hot football game today. And I can't say I blame anyone who did whatsoever. I was in the south end zone and really in the shade for most of the game. But even by the start of the fourth quarter, when it became clear Missouri was going to not let Matt Zollers throw the ball, I was like, you know what? Let's get on down the road. What do you say, Dad? So anyway, like I said, can't blame anybody who was baking in the crowd all day for leaving at halftime, for example. And Eli Drinkwitz basically said as much after the game. John, you mean Johnson, the receiver, almost fumbled? Is that right? Was it Marquise Johnson? Did I get that wrong? Was it actually? I thought it was Ahmad Hardy who was trying to cross the goal line there. If I got that wrong, then my mistake. My apologies for besmirching the good gosh darn name of Ahmad Hardy, the horseman of Missouri. Blake is in the chat. Speaking of Blake of House Stark, is it kind of funny that in blowout games you bring in a freshman running back and a freshman quarterback, and the freshman running back gets to run the ball 1,000,000 times, but the freshman quarterback never gets to throw the ball? Actually, yeah, that is kind of a little bit ironic. It just shows you the value, especially in terms of, hey, we're gonna keep the quarterback clean, keep him in the non-contact jersey, but you running backs, yeah, we're gonna ride you until the wheels fall off. Even as true freshmen, yes, Marquise Davis somehow ends up with 20 carries for 113 yards in that ball game, a touchdown. Hey, really impressive running from Marquise Davis, by the way, too. But yeah, there is a bit of irony there. Marquise Davis is definitely gonna need the cold tub. Now, I will say, just to be fair to Eli Drinkwitz and everyone else, if we're going to run that outside zone to death, well, the quarterback's got to be a part of that. He's got to be able to run those plays, have the right footwork. And you did see, well, there was a fumbled exchange there at one point between Zollers and the Missouri running back. And also, well, you know, Zollers is coming off a serious injury during his previous high school football season that happened less than a year ago. So here's a guy who you want to keep upright, quite honestly. I mean, keep him comfortable. So I don't want to make too many assumptions there with Zollers, because there truly is, he's truly in a bit of a unique situation there in many ways, not just because of his injury, but because of a few other factors I've gone into this program before. Hey, technically in the box score, he threw 2 passes for 5 yards. I'd like to see how many of those were touch passes on a jet sweep, that type of thing. But regardless, I don't want to make too much of this on an incredibly hot day. By the way, you know, Drinkwitz did address this a little bit after the game, saying that he wished that Zollers could have thrown the ball a bit more, but said, quote, "There's part to being a good sport and part to getting off that field too." And I appreciate that. I really do. Hey, let's get off the field. By the way, it's incredibly hot. Fine. I would just say the part of being a good sport that's where I tend to disagree with the strategy a little bit because, hey, first stringer, hey, if Bo Prabula's still in, chucking it down the field, I do think that's being a bad sport in that type of game in the second half. But when it's Matt Zollers, when it's any backup quarterback, you've got the backup offensive linemen in, the backup receivers, the backup running backs, the backup tight ends, the backup everything, I think it's okay to throw the ball. I'm not saying you have to. I'm just saying I don't think it necessarily makes you a bad sport. That's all I'm saying. Josh says, LMAO, if you got extra tickets and feel kind by not selling them for over $200, let me know, please. Hey, good point. He also says it was Marquise, but you're good, Mr. Miller. Well, thank you very much. For some reason, I thought it was Ahmad Hardy. I don't know what to tell you, but apparently it was Marquise Johnson. Honestly, that makes me feel a tiny bit better, but regardless, Marquise got into the end zone anyway. Kind of much ado about nothing, I will say that. Getting out of the game injury-free was just as big as the win. Hey, no question about that. And I will say, for those wondering why the kickoff was moved up instead of back, I was certainly saying, hey, from a fan's perspective, I'd love for it to be at night, not actually be baking in the sun the entire game. Well, basically, according to Mizzou, according to Power Mizzou, this is what the Tigers told their reporters. Basically, if you think it's warm in the stands, well, as long as the day goes along, it's going to be maybe 20 degrees even hotter down on the field. So this was really more about the players than the fans. And, well, since I was one of the lucky people who got some shade in my corner of the stadium, I'm not going to complain at all. Obviously not a perfect situation here for anyone. And speaking of, well, non-perfect situations, it's not exactly perfect that Missouri missed a 41-yard field goal today, and pretty badly, I would say, as well. So you know what? I'm going to talk about that here in just a little bit. Stick with me here for just a bit longer. Quickly, I do want to remind you about Drip Drop. And holy God, was this the perfect day for Drip Drop or what? Because when you're on top of your hydration, you're on top of your game. You're talking energy, mood, focus. Heck, even the old skin, I would say, looks even better when you're hydrated. Drip Drop is perfect. Little packets. It's going to just juice your hydration way up. I mean, it's beyond water. If you really need to hydrate, think about a whole bunch of reasons you may be even more dehydrated than usual, like a super hot football game. Drip Drop's the perfect thing to put in your golf bag, that type of deal. And right now, Drip Drop is offering Locked On listeners 20% off your first order. Just head to dripdrop.com and use promo code LOCKEDONCollege. And DoorDash, yes, it's almost the weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. And how could it not be Ahmad Hardy? I'm sorry, when you get 3 touchdowns and you average 10 yards per carry, I'm going to give it to you. Yeah, I give it to the Missouri offensive line too. But just like Ahmad Hardy delivered for you, well, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. While DoorDash streaks, you save every Saturday. You order, stack it all up all season long, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday, keep the streak alive, fuel your game day. Easy for me to say. Only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through 11/18. All right, it's time to get aggressive against South Carolina next week. I know it's not Eli Drinkwitz's modus operandi, but Missouri lines up for a 41-yard field goal, and it had the distance, sure. I wouldn't say it had massive distance, though, either. And while Eli Drinkwitz has said, hey, Robert Meyer, is it Meyer or Myers? Excuse me, as I go live here and fumble through the box score. Yes, Robert Meyer. Excuse me very much. Our new kicker here, Robert Meyer. Hey, looked fine on the 22-yarder. The 41-yarder, on the other hand, boy, that was missed pretty far right. I mean, a good 5-10 feet right. less than ideal. And to me, that means that Missouri next week against South Carolina needs to be aggressive on fourth down. Hey, if it's 4th and 10 and you got a 35-yarder, bring him out there. If it's anything 40 plus and you have a reasonable chance of picking it up on fourth down, or it's 4th and short in the red zone for that matter, I think you've got to be more aggressive if you're Eli Drinkwitz in Missouri moving forward. Hey, I think you give Meyer's been fine on his extra points, hit 7 more today. He's been absolutely fine there. I just don't think at this point he's trustworthy on field goals. And by the way, it's not just the field goal game either. The kickoff game for Missouri, you know, Blake Craig, we had already become used to him just booting the ball through the end zone on kickoffs as well. Frankly, this is, who knows how big of a difference this is going to make in close games for Missouri. Circumstances are going to decide that, but there's no doubt that Blake Craig right now is a real absence and a loss for Missouri. I just don't think there's any way that they're going to be able to make up for it. And by the way, speaking of losses, this is something I probably should have brought up on a previous episode. So I'm going to talk a little basketball here for a second. Trent Burns, the Missouri center, a freshman last season, going to be a redshirt freshman this season. Well, he sat out last season with a foot injury. Well, now he's having another foot procedure done. He's going to be out about 8 to 12 weeks, sounding closer more like to the 12-week timeline, it would seem to me. And indeed, if we could just promise ourselves that in 12 weeks, Trent Burns will be fine, I could live with that. Again, he's a redshirt freshman, a big guy with a ton of room to grow, a ton of talent too. There aren't that many guys who are his size, who can move like he can move, and apparently stroke a three-pointer every once in a while offensively too. But man, when you're that size and you're already having multiple foot problems to the point where you sit out your whole freshman year and now you're getting a procedure done again, I just don't think we can count on him anymore, unfortunately. So anything we get out of Burns, I think, will be a bonus at this point. But hey, as I'm looking over here on my television, I see that Georgia and Tennessee are coming back from halftime. So you know what? Let's watch some real football. Thanks for joining me here on Locked On Mizzou, and I'll see you Monday with more on this game and Missouri's matchup with the Gamecocks coming up as well.